Hi, this is Faxi Nadu. Welcome back to the Scope Faxi's Modular Crash course. We're going to be starting in this video and in the next video to be looking at a very special module pack for this modular that is called Flexor, and it is by a company called Adern, which can be found at adern.com. They have various products for the Scope system, with arguably the most amazing one being the Flexor 3 module pack. And Flexor 3, actually Flexor 1 and 2 are actually the same module packs, and each iteration just added more modules. So this is the most current iteration and includes the most modules. This is for the Scope system, so you do need the Scope system to get these modules. It comes with a ton of stuff, various filters, shapers, oscillators, and a ton of other things. And we'll be looking at, well, obviously we cannot get into each and every single one, but we will be looking at some of the interesting things that you can do with this module pack. It's a simple, the installment is just as simple as just putting the modules in the right folder. All my Flexor modules are over here on the left. A look in this video, just introducing some of the modules, some of the stuff you can do. So what I've taken already out in this patch is a MVC, which you should be familiar with. It is our MIDI brain. And I've taken out a poly out module and a VCA, and the standard multi-effects that I tend to connect out of every single one of my patches. And of course, it's empty with no effects on it. It's just there if we want them. So we've taken out a VCA, so let's build a synth. And let's make like a synth that can make like crazy FX type of sounds. Let's try to get like sound effects out of our synth and use Flexor for that. So let's take out, in this patch, let's use as many Flexor modules as we can. Obviously, some of them, you don't use just Flexor. You use them in conjunction with the other Creamer modules. So Flexor does not provide like a MIDI brain or a VCA or a poly out because obviously they are already provided. You don't need them. A Flexor oscillator module. Let's choose the this one, NBL 8. About the Flexor modules that I really like is that on every single one of them there's this little A button, and if you click on it, it's actually the module's description, so it would be the same as the manual, and Flexor does have its own manual. But then on the module itself, you also have the module's description. So it's really handy, like even on an oscillator, there are many different kinds. And if you want to know what the particular module does, then all you got to do is click on A. And I find this really nice. So the NBL Elias Saw Gate, a sawtooth-shaped oscillator featuring adjustable, non-interpolated, hard harmonic division. This function produces a unique sound ranging from near perfect ramp down to raw digital aliasing oscillator with various quantization errors. Cool. The non-band limited oscillator design results in a rich high-frequency harmonic content. The oscillator is re-triggered by gate messages to start from the point indicated in the phase control. That's very cool. It means all that stuff basically means that it is a really accurate and very harmonically rich saw oscillator with the option of being MIDI by MIDI. Let's take out a pitch modifier. So from the other tutorials, let's connect the MIDI incoming into the patch, into the MIDI brain, the frequency from the MIDI brain into the pitch modulator B, into the input of the oscillator. So we have our frequency circuit set up. Now we need to set up the sound circuit itself. So let's take out from Flexor. If you go to envelopes, there are a ton of envelopes here, many different kinds. And the difference between the Flexor envelopes and the creamware envelopes is basically just like in how they behave, how snappy they are. And if you take out precision, smooth, so the same hyper 80 precision, hyper 80 smooth. You can click out on both informations and find out the differences between them. The main difference is that this one, the precision, once a gate signal is received, the envelope will progress through all of its stages and it ignores gate off messages. Meaning it doesn't care whether the gate is held or not, and it'll play the whole envelope regardless of what is going on. If a new signal is received while the envelope is still in progress, it will jump back to the attack stage from the same value at which it was interrupted, creating a smooth envelope transition for new nodes. So what it does is it jumps smoothly, like if it's like in the middle of the decay stage and there's a new gate already, the attack stage without creating any clicks. Let's take an ADSR. Let's use the hyper ADSR. Let's use smooth in this case. It doesn't matter that much because it's, again, like with anything within this modular, it's a matter of you experimenting and taking the one that you want that sounds best for your particular patch. If you're making a drum patch and you want a really fast and precise envelope, you might take the AD smooth, the AD precision, but you might want the smooth. So just test it out a little bit. For example, we will use this one. Our envelope. The MVC is telling our envelope when to start doing its thing, and we are connecting the sound into the VCA into the poly out to the output. So right now the synth works, it makes sound, but it's not interesting at all. One thing that if you do notice, that these envelopes are a lot more snappy than the creamware envelopes. The sonic core envelopes. Like if you use these envelopes like on a high attack level, they'll be really, really long attack. And here, like the whole kind of beginning to halfway doesn't do that much because they're like on really like a shorter and snappier kind of timing. So they're really good if you want to make like drums and percussion sounds and really tight sounds. Then the Flexor envelopes are especially great for that. Let's make this whole thing this simple thing that we got here as interesting as we can do it. Let's use just this one oscillator for the example, but let's have a look at the Flexor LFOs, and they are really, really, really cool. So what do we have here? Let's take all of them out. Draw LFO. Go. And okay, that's the three that we will take out right now. So what do we basically have here? Very interesting LFOs that are from the Sonic Core LFOs, and they bring like a whole other kind of concept into modular. It's called a draw LFO, and as you can see, with the creamware modules, I'm sorry, I keep saying creamware. With the Sonic Core modules, you had to let's take out any like input, and you have to set it up with the MIDI clock and the clock divider, like I've shown you before. So you already know that. And if you look at the Flexor LFOs, have a clock and a clock divider inside of them. Cool. You can set the like well, move the time knob the time knob is basically a frequency knob. So what it's just a clock and a clock divider inside, and it's very handy. Just putting it randomly on 120, I just want to show you the module. And there's also a latency value. So see what it does. So if you click on the A, again, it will give you all the information. So what this does is that there, as you see, there's no shape to choose here. What you do is you move around a second or two, and then the shape of the LFO will become your movement. Now, it doesn't really matter how fast or slow you move because it captures whatever you do, and then it plays it as fast as whatever you set on the time or BPM slider. So you can do cool things like, and it'll mimic me, so very nice. And you can kind of modulate, you can modulate the speed. Put this synth again just for a second with this LFO. I think that is already, this is pretty awesome stuff right here. As you can see, these particular LFO modules, this one and this one, okay, it's worth the notice because in the sonic core modules, monophonic mode and it's blue, switch to single mode monophonic mode and it's green. And on the Flexor modules, you see the sidebar right here, it's blue. Switch to single monophonic, it's brown. So just remember that like the blue is polyphonic and any other color you see on the modules, like whether it be Sonic Core or Flexor, then those colors would be the monophonic version. Even though it's really nice. Let's keep this one aside because this is my favorite one and I want to show it last. Let's have a look at this one. It's called the Draw LFO XY. Now what you see here is an XY axis. Remember that like on the first Draw LFO, you moved around on the X axis and it captured your movement. Well, guess what? This is pretty cool. And then obviously you get outputs. Let's have them both go to pitch just for a good laugh and listen again to the synth. A really, really cool thing is that these oscillators actually go into audio rate. So you actually have like a form going into audio rate. That is totally crazy. Okay, it's not responding like I wanted it to. Maybe it's not really going fully into audio rate. Obviously, you have to mess around with things to get exactly the response that you want. One more thing I do want to show about this LFO is that you can modulate the X and the Y control signal. And like I said, the Flexor modules are interchangeable with Sonic Core modules. Have it modulate. Let's bring in some speed. Whoa, that's really cool. It's like, wow, it's like orbiting it, like a crazy planet gone nuts. What if we put it on like a random step? So we wanted an effect machine, and we pretty much got what we got. Pretty cool. This is the draw LFO, and it's a whole world in itself of experimentation. And yeah, this is my favorite one, and it's called the pattern LFO. And again, it has BPM, it has a MIDI clock, everything is inside, just like the other ones. And the neat thing about this one is it has external patterns, wave shapes. Like let's say you would record different shapes from the draw LFO, like just the control shape itself, and then place them as options in another LFO. The various shapes available, various waveforms. There are 60 something, I think. No, wow, more. Okay, there's 128, so you can actually change the LFO. Yeah, there's 100, like you can route key follow. Okay. I'm sorry, this is getting nuts, so I just want to, this LFO, other than having these shapes inside, that's one cool thing about it, okay? The shapes itself is a cool, awesome thing in itself, right? Because if we go, like the more kind of punching one, like this. These are all synced to your BPM. So that's already very cool in itself. And this LFO can be gated. We'll show everything. The one cool thing that I want to get to is that you have here, you see this knob, it's called external pattern. It allows for a modulation signal to choose which pattern is going to play. So you can do various things with this, like I can connect it to note. Then every note I play on the keyboard is going to get a different shape based on note number. So that's pretty awesome right there. I can get crazier in another way. I can route, oh, I can't? Okay, I thought I can. So some signals it won't let you, it doesn't like velocity for some reason. Oh, no, maybe it's a bug. Check out the pattern LFO again. There are some bugs in the system that it should allow velocity. Or not. It does. I didn't turn it on, so this as well. So I'm pressing the same notes on my keyboard and at different velocities, different strength where I'm hitting it. So I'm hitting it really softly now. And now I'm hitting it like full force. And another cool thing you could do is you could take the note and or velocity signal, whichever one that you want. You can scale it over here, but let's use this opportunity to show you one more thing. Where is it? Scales and tables. No, I don't want this one. I want this one, the curve table. Now what it allows you to do is it allows you to take, let's make some room here so we can see. It allows you to take, but let's say we're taking the note velocity. Let's take velocity, and it to choose which kind of curve it has. So you can have like a linear curve, or like let's say a velocity value of 1, would output the value 1, and then the maximum 127 would output 127. But then you could have different like exponential curves and reverse curves. Like you can reverse it where the highest would be the lowest. And the cool thing is you can actually, once you choose a basic kind of way the curve acts, you can mess around with the offset, sensitivity. Very handy. It can actually shape any control signal, any constant control signal or whatever you want actually, and kind of bend it into a response that you want. It's really neat. Let's erase that. We can do another LFO. LFO modulates the frequency. Let's go for like but you can also have it modulate pattern selection. Right there too. Well, for this LFO, we need a MIDI clock. You already know all this if you've seen the other videos. So I'm not going to explain how to connect the MIDI clock, but I'm just going to do it. So just doing it real quickly for the example. So you can set it to say like the same BPM, right? 120, 120. Hold, and there we go. Let's say your track is 120 BPM. There's another thing that is synced to your BPM. So the options are really, really cool with this one. Let's keep this LFO in here. Some options with this LFO. Let's make this synth like an FX kind of quick FX platform with some options. So let's delete the let's keep the clock. Let's keep also this Sonic Core simple LFO. Let's have ourselves a simple LFO in here. Oh, what did I do? The connection was so messed up and no one told me about it. I've actually connected the clock to the gate. I'm sorry. Work like it re-triggers it on each clock signal. To experiment with that. Oh, clock divider. I need a frequency divider. This is the right connection. That was dumb. Okay, so now we can externally sync it properly. Okay, so LFO, we have this LFO, and we've shown like how you could use note velocity and the LFO to modulate the pattern selection. And let's give ourselves the option to switch between them, to select one or the other. So let's connect the note. The touch alone. Let's just use these three. Option would be the note. The second option would be velocity, and the third option would be this LFO. So now we're on note. Now we're on velocity. And there's the LFO doing it. That's pretty cool. LFO can be gated, and there's a connection right here. You can make the connection, and then gate signal, the LFO will reset. But then it's always gated, and it's not so hard to just, if you want to gate it, make the connection. I'm just going to show you how it's really simple. Like on the CW, on the Sonic Core LFO, you make the connection and then you have an on-off, right? You can have it re-triggered or not. What if we want that here? This button is not provided within here. So let's say we want it, we can just add it. Go to our mix and gain, to the switches, and there is over here an off switch. Basically, this button in a module all in itself. So what you just do is you connect the gate. Oh, why not? Okay, it doesn't let me do it. Should. I've done it before. Sorry for showing you bugs in this video, but yeah, you should be able to do it. On some of the other stuff, it's worked without a problem. I'll research it a little bit later. If I come up with the reason why it didn't work, I'll add an annotation to the video on YouTube with the solution. So as you're watching it, you might already be watching it with the solution. But okay, let's forget that. I'm sorry. But let's keep building the synth and making it even more interesting. So what we have this LFO, this crazy thing right here. We have the choice of using note, velocity, or this LFO to modulate the pattern. So let's continue. VCA over here. Let's take the VCA over here and have the oscillator go into some Flexor filtering. So let's have a look at the filters available, and you notice there are a ton of them. Filters range from kind of really, you can call them low-level modules. There's an all-pass filter for other filters and for reverb machines, and it's really low level. Like you can make algorithmic stuff with that. More high level, and there's interesting LFOs. And you have like multi LFOs somewhere here. With tons of choices, and they're basically the choice, like the LFOs that you have right here. So we're going to look at the low pass LFOs, and as you can see on the sonic core, there are a bunch of sonic core LFOs as well, right? There are 5 right here, as well as the ladder filter. There's like 8 LFOs. And each one of them is interesting and different in itself. So let's have a look. Low pass. One more. So the first thing to point out, and you're not going to be really obviously hearing it on the video quality, you cannot hear like the tonality of it, but the tone itself of the Flexor filters is totally different from the sonic core filters, so it adds a whole other dimension. It sounds like a whole other sound in itself, so it really enriches the palette here. This one is a multi-stage up to 4 poles, and you choose the number of poles right here. This one, even though it's really nice, but it's a basic 4-pole filter. And the more interesting ones as far as low pass are this LP3 rubber, LP6 aqua, and LP8 butter. Now, each one of them has like an interesting circuit inside. It's not just like a regular filter. LP3 rubber is a 3-pole low pass filter. It has internal filter saturation and a screaming resonance. This rubbery and juicy sound is great for classic acid type synthesis riffs, and it's really great. You can make cool bass lines, TB303 kind of, like the first thing that comes to mind reading this line is like, whoa, 303 type of filter, right? The LP6 Aqua is similar in some ways. Up to 6 filters, and you can choose the stages right here. Work with the resonance. So let's read up on it. 6 stages in series, and any of the stages can be assigned to the final audio output of the filter. So you choose the stage. But the thing with the resonance has a very liquid sound that is always internally fed back from the 6th filter stage, regardless of which stage is assigned to the output. Now that is unique, isn't it? So let's say you have you choose 4 poles being fed back from the 6th pole. It's an 8-pole filter. It's a really steep and really deep filter, great for bass lines, and it has a saturation stage inside the resonance circuit that you choose how is with this knob. This filter gets really fat and really like it has a really deep tone to it, and I really like this one actually. Example, the LP8 rubber, the LP6 aqua. I'm sorry. The thing with these Flexor modules, it's worth to mention. You notice that if we take out like cream sonic core modules, they come out by default as blue. They come out by default on monophonic mode. And the reason is that they are much more DSP hungry than the stock sonic core modules. So they open them for you in monophonic mode. Some of these modules will have right here a value and it says poly 4. So the absolute max polyphonic availability of this module would be 4. And if we look at some of the other ones, they all have it. Yeah, they do. But here you have the max polyphony of 8. And it means that you can switch it to polyphonic mode, but that even if you set more than 4 voices over here, I'll allocate more than 4 voices to this patch. Voices because of the aqua filter in this chain. Now, why would they do that? Why does it actually limit you in polyphony? I mean, you would think that you would be limited by your DSP itself. Now, this is getting a little bit into the structure and how DSP machines are designed. So DSP, it stands for digital signal processor, right? It's a chip actually that is like your computer's chip. It's like a CPU that is actually like really designed for processing audio. System has multiple chips on it to give you all this power inside. So for example, my system has 2 cards, and one card is the very big 14 DSP card, and you have 14 physical DSPs on it. And then my second card has 4 DSPs on it, so a total of 18 DSPs, and it is a lot of power. But to get some things need to be locked over one DSP, and I'll try to explain it a little bit, and it might make sense to you. So let's imagine you have a filter like this one, and is really heavy, and you set it to a lot of polyphony. Normally, when you open a small module like this VCA, the system will allocate it to one of the DSPs. And that's fine. It's a small module. Even if you open like 1,000,000 polyphony, it'll still fit on one DSP. And if not, it can spread it around different DSPs, and it's still managed. But to get perfect phase, think about it, there's phase involved. If you're moving parts of the sound module across various DSPs, like if the system will decide to place this filter on across 4 DSPs because it doesn't have enough power to put them on one, then we will have slight phasing variations between the DSPs themselves, and this could cause the module to just not sound as good and not be as precise. So what the solution by Adern for this problem was to force your system to lock into one DSP. Now, these DSPs have a limited amount of stuff that you can put on them, and that limitation would be the max poly on that particular module. So bottom line, all this gibberish that I've talked about now, what it means is that the system cannot load more than 4 instances of this module on one DSP. So that's your max. This same thing like will apply to anything that has DSP inside. So this same limitation will apply to the Nord or like a Kima or other systems that work with hardware chips on them. So it's a thing to keep in mind, and this is actually a very good solution by Adern to lock the module, and you can sacrifice some polyphony for certain modules and get great sound, and I think that's fine. and that's been done like always in hardware synths. So that was just a little explanation, so you know like a little bit of what's going on behind and the reasoning for some of the stuff going on. Connect our oscillator to the filter. We're making something really simple here. I just want to show you the modules. I know, but it's a very, very sharp and musical filter, this Aqua. So we said we're going for crazy, right? So let's take out another one of these and have it modulate the cutoff just for fun. So, and I think we can use the same pattern selector. Let's turn this one on. Let's have this one be automatically on the LFO just for fun. Let's not use a switch for this one just because. No real reason. So let's have this one. Now you might get a little bit of this is obviously jumping around really fast, and you can get like clicks into your sound. So remember, you know the solution that I've already taught with the 6 dB low pass filter. Flexor itself gives another solution, which is kind of based around the same thing. If you go into Tools, Control Smoother, I think they just have like optimized low pass filters inside. Use it like if you, I wanted to show everything with the sonic core. If you don't have Flexor or if you're using another modular, it actually does smooth it a little bit nicer than just using a 6 dB low pass. It's like maybe a tighter, kind of tighter response. So we're going to keep the smoother in there, and well, do the same for the first LFO. Bring that in. Some more of the things that Flexor has in here. Into the shapers tab down here, you'll notice that there are there's like a subfolder of different shaper types. There are a bunch of distortions, formanters, harmonic shapers, which is like there's saturation and distortion, do similar things, but it's kind of like a different end results. Shapers. Let's for now have a look at the OSC shapers. Or not, sorry, I'm sorry, the harmonic shapers. Now warp, squish, and squeeze just for the fun of it. So one thing to note about these shapers, let's put them above the filter first of all. One thing to note about these shapers is sometimes they're like really wild and unpredictable in sort of ways. And sometimes you kind of have to get really sweet spots with them. But once you find something, then yeah, it can sound really nice. And I'll show you what they do. Them like, okay, let's say you're new to all of this and you're opening it up and you're like, what the heck is squeeze? What the heck is squish? What the heck is warp? Now you can press the A right here, and get information. But I also want to show you in the Flexor modular itself. Sorry, the Flexor manual itself. If you go into the harmonic, let's say warp, information, and there's actually a drawing of what it does. So triangle oscillator through warp creates this really cool shape thing. Crumble, harm, shred, squiz. Bottom line is they make they make your oscillator sound like it's been going through some process or the other. In the case of the squish process sounds a bit like FM, as it changes the harmonic structure of the wave according to its amplitude. Process sounds a bit like sync, as it changes the harmonic structure of the wave according to its amplitude. So, and what you really have to do with these shapers is hear what they do. Looking at it kind of gives a basic idea. Let's go back into like sound is not getting pitch modulated. Is not being modulated either, and it's totally open. Squeeze. Now, obviously, you see modulation inputs on these, and you can obviously use any modulation to move them around, including like we've shown on the LFO. You can use note value, velocity value, envelopes, or LFOs. But let's bring in another LFO so we have a little bit of variation here. What it does. These two shapers. Now for like really strange tones. Not really torn, but it also depends a lot on the source that you pass through these. And I think that with these shapers, a simpler source would sound a lot better, right? This is already a saw, and it's kind of getting totally messed up by these shapers, and it's sometimes you might want that. And yeah, for like an FX device like we're making, then this saw could be perfectly usable. But I want to use the opportunity to show you an additional thing. And if you go into OSC shapers, you have different things that are supposed to be like meant to be applied directly on Flexor's oscillators and to get additional shapes out of them. Because if you look in the basic oscillator shapes, there's sawtooths and pulses. But what if you want like a triangle, or if you want a sine? So you have these modules here. And there is over here, NBL saw to tri-syn. Any Flexor oscillator, and it says it even right here. Changes the oscillator into a triangle or a near perfect sine. Quirk here that the sine has a slight harmonic at the third harmonic, giving a unique sound character of its own. So that's pretty cool. Do this by you pass the oscillator. Obviously, you could do anything with anything, right? You can use this module and pass drums into it and just see what happens. But if you use it for what it's meant to be, then you connect the output of the oscillator into the shaper, then to whatever you want to connect it to. Let's turn off all these other harmonic shapers. Pitch. Have going this. So it took the saw, and there's the sine all the way to the right. And the triangle shapes. This triangle like they did in their manual through the shapers. Yeah, and it responds much better than the saw. Really cool tone. Now you kind of try to get really like I put it on high values just to get like the full range, but if you put it like on a really low value, like try to find a sweet spot and like listen to this. This is really cool FM. Even one tick, like one tick of the mouse. This is without the effect, and this is just one tiny tick on the mouse. So that's the squish. That would be the squeeze, the squish, and the warp. My personal favorite, I like the warp the best. I think it's like the most under control one of them, of the, at least the three that we have here. But obviously you're not limited to using one of them. We have them set up in series right here. Let's kind of mess around. Cool. Let's get the LFO back moving. So if you're looking to make, we call them in Psytrance music Psy farts, then yeah, it doesn't get much more farty than what we did right here. All you would need to do is add some delay to it. And speaking of delay, let's do that with Flexor. Let's set up. Let's keep this just for the example, and let's go from our poly out and add some more stuff after the poly out. Let's start by, you may have noticed on some other machines that I like to have a high pass filter right inside the patch. And I've shown you using the Sonic Core one. The pass filter that we used is 24 dB, and that is already very steep. But one of the Flexor LFOs that is actually even steeper, the FX8 Knife. A really steep 8-pole high-pass filter. A lot. Steep or not, just the way it responds, and like it just takes off exactly what I wanted to take off. Like I feel I really like using it. Just kind of like my thing. So you have a really precise slicing across the spectrum with this one. And using the resonance, it is not self-resonating, but it just kind of gives you like, lets you grip that exact place that you want to place it in the frequency spectrum. Especially if you're making FX sounds and you want to place them exactly at a certain place. We want to do some more stuff. First of all, look again at the shapers. And so we've used a harmonic shaper, we've used an OSC shaper to shape our saw into a triangle. Let's use some saturation. Now saturation, what it does, let's leave the drives alone. Let's talk about the ones that Flexor itself is calling saturations. It simulates that sort of kind of old school tape machine type of when you push them into high gain, and they kind of add this sweet harmonic distortion. And there are a few of them: fat sat, soft sat, warm sat. Sometimes they might sound a little bit similar. If you go here, shapers, let's look at the saturators. So they show you what soft sat is doing and warm sat. So what they do is they kind of will round out your like if you use like an actual pulsifier distortion module, then it would take this triangle and it would make it really squared. What these do is they kind of, you see it's not linear, it's not squaring it. There's a curve to it, and that curve is musical and harmonic and really nice on the ears. That's what provides the sound. And the fat is like the most curvy. The soft is just a little bit of a rounding, somewhere in between. Doesn't matter which one you take. Totally up to you. And different patches you can use different ones depending on how pronounced of an effect that you like to have. I like to do. I'll show you right here, and this is another way to emphasize that modular is modular. You're not like, okay, like you could say, cool, I want a saturation, and you take out a saturator, and yeah, you've done your thing, but you're not limited to that. You can take out different ones. I normally do. I connect a warm sat and a soft sat. Take out a tape drive. Look here, let's go back to the Flexor manual. I really like it because I can show you the shapes with this. A heavy kind of thing, right? The shaper creates mild to aggressive saturation effects at lower values and incoming triangle signal edges, creating a distinctive saturation. Analog tape machine. Higher values will create a far more drastic near square distortion, producing a rich, warm, and lush overdrive effect. Different shapers with different kind of curves. Like there's more, but let's talk about just these three. I just kind of like them the best. And what I do often is out of my synth chain would be the soft sat. And then I connect them in series. Oops, I'm sorry. Whoa. And then I have the option of, I don't put them up all the way, obviously. Like I'd put the tape just a little bit. It kind of gets you even more interesting curve, bottom line, than if you would use one. They're kind of interacting between them and creating this really cool warmth to the sound. And you have like 3 parameters. You can kind of fine tune exactly where you want it going. And being 3 options, you know, you always have like, you have the aggressive, less aggressive, and the least aggressive. So if you have a sound and you want just a little bit, keep all these closed. Boom, I got like a little bit going. A little more, I can use this one, I can use this one, or I can kind of get, like I said, creative. And this won't add something huge to the sound if you don't like, if you put it all the way, obviously. Let's be careful here. Yeah, then it'll get crazy, it'll get cranked. But if you put them on mild values, then you won't hear like a huge difference in the sound, but you will hear a little bit more of a presence and warmth. And I think it really adds a lot to, like, it makes the sound bigger without making it too big. So really useful. Recommend this whole last chain here. Or, try placing it like at the end of your patches. And I think it will really make your palette much richer. Just give it a go. Continue. So we have these shapers going on. Everything right here is going on. Okay, if we go here, delays folder, there are different kinds of delays. Some of them are like this one. Fast delays. Aggressively, you can do different things with these delays. Full delay that I like a lot, and it's really useful in synthesis. ASF. If you're a Logic user, then this might kind of instantly look a little bit familiar. It kind of looks like Logic's stereo filter, a little bit like the tape. It looks like a mix kind of the Logic stereo and tape delays. And yeah, that is actually a really good thing. I really like those delays in Logic. So you can put it, you can decide you want it after your saturation. You can decide you want it after your poly out. You can put it wherever you want, obviously. After the poly out, after the high pass, but before the saturators. And my reasoning is that if I want like a lot of delay going on, I don't want it to affect the low end so much. I just don't want to create like a harmonic mess in the low end. I want to create a harmonic mess in the mid and high ranges. So it's useful for me to have it like after the high pass. That like, you know, the logical kind of tape or analog sound where so my saturators would be the last thing on my patch, regardless of what I do. Let's connect. Delay. You notice this is a stereo delay, right? Let's see. I can use that after the saturators, but I'm not sure if there is a, I think it's this one. Yeah, this is the same thing, just with one channel. So yeah, it's for this particular patch, we'll use this one. It's not playing for some reason. Okay, it's not playing. I think I'm missing some DSP files, and I apologize for that. But let's do another thing. I said I do like to have at least inside my patch. Like I can put effects afterwards, but usually inside my patch, I do like to have the delays before the saturators. But let's just put a delay like right here from the scope itself. The sound with the delay. There we go. So we've kind of gone a little bit beyond sci-farts now. You can make also really cool drones with this patch. Let's put it like on 3-volt funny and see what it does. On the DSP, it'll totally jump. Loading them. Not as big a jump as I thought. So now we're with polyphony. So I've kind of shown you a little bit like, let's call it rough around the edges in this video maybe. Just like, because like what I mean by rough is that it takes a little bit of time to kind of, especially with these Flexor modules, which are so like fine-tuned, you know, you really have to find sweet spots. And I think we did find a few nice sweet spots in here with, especially now getting into that last sound, I think we kind of hit we hit on something nice. I could definitely use this sound as it is right now in a track. But what I was trying to say is that if you get like really take your time and get intricate with the knobs, you can use these methods. Like you can use these shapers to get to model really actually acoustic sounds, right? Because if you think of it, most of like the things in the digital world that try to model like analog instruments as well as acoustic instruments, they do it often by like slight and like detailed wave shaping and FM and warps and stuff like that. This is exactly what you have here, and you have many more shapers. We'll look at some more of them in some of the other videos, and we'll get into like the ones that we didn't use in this one. So we'll show a totally different side of the shapers in the upcoming Flexor videos. So stay tuned. Hope you learned a little bit in this video, and I'll see you right away in the next one. So have a good one for now. See you in a bit.